Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here on the road with the Seeds Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. I'm here at my friend's home in New Jersey on the Jersey Shore, and we're going to look at the week ahead for the astrology of September. So let's get started. Okay, so I thought maybe we could start with yesterday. Today is the 11th, September 11th, and I thought maybe we could start with yesterday because yesterday was the full moon in Pisces, and just to go sort of look at it again, and we can see here on this chart that the moon was at 1741 of Pisces in a pretty close conjunction to Neptune. We also have Jupiter pretty close, and last night when we watched the moonrise at the ocean, the moon rose up and then Jupiter rose right next to it. And that, of course, that Jupiter is in Aries, and Jupiter is still in a tight opposition, relatively tight opposition to Mercury. Mercury just stationed retrograde on the 9th. And so Jupiter and Mercury will sort of be moving together in that opposition that brings up, sort of opens the book on a lot of things. So we're going to get a lot of information coming in. But of course, because Mercury is retrograde, it's not like we can't believe everything we hear, but we have to double check everything we hear. So it's just a matter of making sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, that you get the correct information. In some cases, you may need a second opinion about stuff with this energy of the opposition between Jupiter and Mercury. And of course, Mercury and Jupiter are the two planets that rule the axis of the mind. Jupiter as the ruler of Sag and Mercury as the ruler of, no, actually not. Wait, yeah, Mercury as the ruler of Gemini. So we're still dealing with information, what we believe to be true, truth and lies. But a lot of what was going on during the period when the nodes were in this signs, a lot of that information is coming in. And of course, the nodes were in that sign in, was it 2019? No, 2020 and part of 2021, I believe, if my memory serves me, which may or may not be serving me. But we do have the full moon in Pisces. Of course, Pisces is the energy of the veil, the other side. It's highly psychic, it's inspirational, but it can also be delusional. But that sun in Libra sort of puts our feet on the ground and says, okay, if these are your dreams, what do you have to do to make them come true? And those things that you need, what adjustments do you need to make in that case? And what are your resources? There's always questions about resources because the North Node is in the sign of Taurus, which is all about our essential needs, our values, and our resources and our resourcefulness. So you may not have the resources that you would like, but you can always be resourceful. And if you have any friends who are particularly resourceful, those are the people you should be talking to because they will help you show the way on how to get your needs met. And not necessarily have to go without the most important things. But there are certain things that we're going to have to let go of. And part of that is the South Node in Scorpio, right? And of course, Saturn is still square the nodes, although it's not as tight as it was before. What is it, like 5, looks like 4 degrees, 5 degrees now. But it's still pressing on those nodes, requiring us to look at things in a very realistic way, and need to look at the past, look at the complications of our relationships, the things we are not willing to let go of, that we need to let go of in order to move forward in a more positive direction, perhaps, and bring freedom into your life because of Uranus being at that North Node. Because Uranus's function, while it is chaos, is also sort of breaking us out of the crust of whatever life that we have that's holding us back from our true potential and our true ability to be who we are. So that's pretty important. All right, so let's go. Now we'll go to the, let me just, when you're in a new place Okay, here we go. Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, here we go. All right. So let's look at the week ahead, September 11th to September 17th. Today's Sunday, September 11th, which vibrates to a 26/8. That's the page of wands. So messages, we'll get some messages today. And where will we get the messages from? Well, we'll get them from Uranus, because today the sun trines Uranus. And this is change through self-expression, but trines are flowing aspects, so there's nothing in the way. And with Uranus and the sun, there's nothing in the way. There's nothing holding back the change right now. So it's an easier time to, sometimes Uranus works where it has to like the whole house or the whole tower has to come down. That's the way Uranus works. But sometimes it's easier. You don't have to go through that necessarily trauma to have the change that's necessary. And this is one of those aspects. But it is on the Leo side of things, so it can be somewhat, like it's all about me. So you're going to hear that from some people. It's very self-expressive, but it's also highly creative. So this is a highly creative time for you to connect to your higher spiritual frequencies. On Monday, September 12th, we have the sun making inconjunct Saturn. Now, this is a difficult aspect. The interesting thing about the relationship between the sun and Saturn is that the sun is at the center of our solar system, and Saturn is the limit of our three-dimensional reality, what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and see with our own eyes, right? Past Saturn, we have the transpersonal planets, which you need the aid of a telescope to see. So you need your secondary senses for that. But the sun and Saturn is sort of the construct of our reality to a certain extent. The inconjunct requires us to make adjustments, and these are ego adjustments at this time, adjustments to your ego. The sun in Gemini, the sun in Virgo, Saturn in Aquarius. Sometimes you have to be willing to give up your emotional attachment to your own opinion or your own experience or just your own way of looking at life in order to fit in to the larger society. And, some people will never do that. But if you want to have any sort of influence on society, you have to be willing to hold back some of perhaps the things that might keep you as an outsider. It's an opportunity to go from being an outsider to more of, I wouldn't say an insider, but certainly have an ability to affect society in a more positive way. So you might have some good ideas, but if they never let you into the party, how is anyone ever gonna feel or hear about it or understand what you understand? So there is a certain amount of ego adjustment necessary, and that sun in conjunct Saturn will do that for us. So that's Monday. And then the rest of the week, there's not a whole lot of things going. There's things happening with the moon, and if you're interested in what that's going to be, you can watch my morning, as I walk through the garden or walk to the beach or wherever I happen to be at the time on the road, and you'll hear like the specific things that are happening this week. So we're going to jump to Friday the 16th, which is a 31/4 vibration. That is the 5 of Wands in tarot. So there can be this sort of sense of maybe chaos, or the 5 of Wands generally is, people are arguing, but it's a highly creative energy as well. So it does sort of creates a crisis that we can actually get solutions from. And that's also reflected in the fact that we have a first quarter square between Venus and Mars on that day. This is a crisis in action within our relationships. So by Friday, our relationships are sort of on the line, and it's like, what do you have to do? How are you going to deal with the crisis that we're facing? What are we going to do? How are we going to move through it? This could be marriage, relationships, it could be friendships, any relationship where there's a give and take. There's going to be some crisis with that. On the same day, we have the sun making an opposition to Neptune. Now, the sun is an energy of clarity and Neptune is an energy of obfuscation. So we may be able to see things we couldn't see before because the sun finally, like in the morning, sometimes on the Cape where I live or by where I live, we'll have this morning fog, and it's all gray and sort of, and then by the afternoon, the fog is cleared and things are cleared up. And that's sort of the energy of this opposition between the sun and Mercury. It is a point of awareness to where you may have been fooled. You know, you might, this is, I know in the Bible, they talk about the veil is lifted, or the crust is lifted from their eyes when Jesus puts the dirt on and his spit on the blind man's thing, and then he can see again. So it's a clearing, and so a seeing and an illumination. So pay attention to what is illuminated on Friday for you. It can be confusing, can be a confusing time, but it's also a good time for creative imagination. So there's a clarity and almost like a clarity between what is and what is possible, right? What is and what is possible. And with all this emphasis on our resources and what we can back with our resources, that of course applies to this situation. On Saturday, September 17th, we have a last quarter moon. This is the 3/4 spot of the lunation cycle that began with that new moon, and very powerful new moon in Virgo, you know, seeing what needs to be fixed and going about fixing it, right? So the crisis in consciousness square normal, it's about reorientation. So you're reorientating, letting go of some of the past and reorienting yourself to the next step of the future. It also brings us into a more collective state of being. So how we fit into society becomes a little, and how we fit into the world, the larger world, is a little bit more important. And oftentimes we have to let go of things before we can actually get there. So let's look at some specifics with these charts. So here's the sun waxing trine to Uranus. And of course, it's September 11th. And so there's always a significance to that, you know, especially here in the New York, New Jersey vicinity, where so many people were lost. In fact, most of the people, I think the most people that were lost at 9/11 actually came from a place called Middletown, New Jersey, which is a small, like, you know, kind of like, I wouldn't call it rural, but it's kind of suburban-ish shore place in New Jersey. So this time is very intense down here, actually. But we have the sun trining Uranus, illumination and change. This is the creative and expressive aspect of the cycle that began on 5/5, right? That was a portal, 5/5 portal, which was 5/5 to 2022 was a 16/7 vibration, which of course is the tower. So this is the shocking thing, right? The tower falls, right? Interesting that we have the trine on the anniversary of when the towers fell, the twin towers, no less. And Mars is in Gemini now. And when the towers came down, Saturn was in Gemini. In fact, when the towers came down in 2001, the twin towers themselves, the World Trade Center, was having its Saturn return. It didn't make it through. Okay. Some kids making noise outside. I apologize for the noise. So this conjunction that started this synodic cycle, where we're at this point of trine, of flow, of change, started at 15 degrees of Taurus, which was a head covered with a rakish silk hat, muffled against the cold. A man braves the storm. The courage needed to meet the crisis precipitated by social ambition. So we are all sort of coming to understanding or certainly information about this crisis that we're having. Of course, the sun at 19 degrees of Virgo, a swimming race. The keynote here is the stimulation that comes from a group effort towards a spiritual goal. Anytime you see in these images where you see water or a pool or an ocean or something, that's the collective consciousness, right? So we're swimming through this energy of the collective consciousness. Trine Uranus at 19 Taurus. We know what Uranus at 19 Taurus, because it's been at 19 Taurus for like 2 months now, right? And that's a new continent rising out of the ocean, the surge of new potentiality after crisis. So while we're at a crisis point and we have to make decisions about what we can and cannot maintain, new opportunities are all around us. And so while it can be overwhelming to see everything that's going on in the world, or even maybe in your own life, you need to focus on those things which you have some power to change and change them. Those things that you don't have power to change, let them go. It's not your responsibility. On a certain level, your responsibility is going to be your best self, because that's what helps everybody else. It's vibrational, it's resonant. And so if you're whole within yourself, you create a resonant field of wholeness, and you will attract more and more whole people. And when all the whole people come together, that's when the change can happen. It's about becoming the change you want to see. And we can see here, in this case, this is the US, of course. I should have maybe done it for New York, but I didn't, because of 9/11. But we have the sun in the 12th house. We have Uranus in the 8th house. The 8th house and the 12th house are water houses, right? The 8th house is the natural house for Scorpio. The 12th house is the natural house for Pisces. So it's in the United States anyway. It's a lot of it is not going to necessarily be seen because when you're dealing with the water houses, you're underwater. So you can't, like, if you look at a fish in a pond and say you want to do like spearfishing, you have to take into consideration that there's a change in the refraction of the light. So you're not actually seeing things where they are, but just sort of maybe where they are. You have to understand the angle when you're trying to like fish that way, right? And so there's that energy here as well. And of course, the 8th house is like deep underground water, and the 12th house is the ocean. So there's this emotional catharsis that's happening at this time. So whatever's flowing through you, let it flow, and let it go. So this is the sun making that waning, in conjunct September 12th. This is Monday. This is the more difficult aspect. We can see it's a green line here. There's the sun at 20 degrees of Virgo, Saturn there at 20 degrees of Aquarius. This is a crisis-producing aspect that requires an adjustment of our emotional attachments to our sense of authority. This cycle began at the Sun-Saturn conjunction of 4/4, another portal, 2022, which vibrated to a 14/5, the Temperance card in the tarot. So this cycle between the Sun and Saturn is a healing cycle, but it's also a temperance. So we need to temper our habits. We need to temper our feelings, our emotions. We can't get caught up in the extremes. We have to walk the straight and narrow, one foot in front of the other. The Sabian symbol for that particular conjunction, which happened at 16 degrees of Aquarius, is a big businessman at his desk. The ability to organize the many aspects of an enterprise involving a large group of human beings. So this is about sort of an organizational, how do we organize ourselves so that we can work together, help each other, and not necessarily always like working against each other, where nobody wins, but maybe a few people at the top, right? The sun at 20 degrees of Virgo, a caravan of cars headed to the West Coast, the need of cooperative effort in reaching a new world of experience, in conjunct Saturn at 20, which says a large white dove bearing a message, the answer of spiritual agencies to thorough, sustained, and victorious individual efforts. So we need to be our best selves when we walk into a situation, and we will attract people being their best selves, and more will get done and miracles can happen with this energy. So, but we have to be willing to a certain extent to let go of our ego and our need to be right or our need to be in charge. We have to learn how to play nice in the playground, and this inconjunct pushes us in that direction. So let's look at Venus and Mars, right? This is the Friday aspect, the square between Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars, of course, are the two planets associated with relationship and how we relate to one another. So their synodic cycle, which lasts about 2 years, is showing us, you know, what's the challenges in how we relate to one another, the masculine, the feminine, men and women, or just the inner masculine and inner feminine within ourselves. The first quarter square is a crisis in action. So we need to take an action. We need to do something. We need to take an action, right? Okay. On what though? What was the initial energy of this meeting of Mars and Venus? Well, the interesting thing is because of Venus's retrograde cycle, Venus and Mars came together twice. Okay. And when it did, this was at the beginning of the year, Venus and Mars came together in Capricorn, 17 degrees of Capricorn, and then both of them moved past Pluto. So they both had these Pluto sort of meetups with the god of the underworld. And for Venus, this was the last of 3 meetups with Pluto, and for Mars, it was a single meetup with Pluto. Now, Pluto and Mars are kind of like kindred spirits, so their coming together isn't as difficult perhaps as when we're dealing with Venus and Pluto, because when you're dealing with Venus and Pluto, you're always bringing up issues of control, and the need to control and the need to sort of you know, that sort of obsessive compulsive control that people have within their relationships, whether it's with a lover or a child or a mother. It's like these attachments, sort of too much attachment, often less likely than not enough attachment, but certainly, and not just, you know, the things we value as well, not just like what are we attached to, what do we really need, what do we need to let go of. Let's look at the 2 conjunctions. The first conjunction occurred on the 16th of February, which was a 24/6 vibration. That is the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Wands. So have a sustaining spirit within you. That's the Queen of Wands. Interestingly enough, at 17 degrees of Capricorn, where this conjunction occurred, Sabian's symbol was a repressed woman finds psychological release in nudism, the escape from bondage to social inhibitions and reliance upon the wisdom of the body. This is about the wisdom of the body is the feminine. The body, the physical body and our emotions are feminine, whereas our mind and our spirit tend to be more masculine. It's more about energy going out. But the feminine energy is the energy that we bring sort of within us. It's like magnetic attraction energy, very, you know, the Venus part of things, right? So there was a, you know, right before Venus went over Pluto and then met up with Mars on the other side of Pluto at the next degree, which at the next time they came together, which was at 1 degree of Aquarius, but not just 1 degree of Aquarius. It was 00 degrees, 01 minutes of Aquarius, 1 minute into Aquarius. I mean, you couldn't get the first step, like the first step into Aquarius, right? And so we have them coming together, but of course, Venus had to go through the gauntlet of Pluto, Mars had to go through the gauntlet of Pluto, and then they came back together in that Aquarian energy, right? You know, like the Aquarian age energy, and they made a conjunction. And one of Aquarius is an old Adobe mission in California. The keynote is the power inherent in all great human works to endure far beyond the worker's lifespan. So this is about doing things that have staying power, and not just for your life. It's like that old adage about a person who plants a tree. They will never sit under the shade of that tree, but they're you know, people who come after them will. And so the actions that we need to take need to be looked at in the view of sort of, how are my actions today going to affect the future? you know, the whole 7 generation thing. So that's very important, right? So if we look at the square between Venus and Mars, the interesting thing is Venus is in Virgo, Mars is in Gemini. Both Virgo and Gemini are disposited by Mercury. They're both Mercury ruled signs. Mercury is in Libra, and Mercury is retrograde in Libra right now. And Libra is the sign of relationship. So this is about a renegotiation of our relationships. This is necessary at this time. We need to renegotiate our relationships. What are you responsible for? What am I responsible for? What am I going to do? What are you going to do? You know, that kind of thing. And that sort of give and take, and that need to take action, and that need to do things differently is going to be the thing that propels us forward. And we'll either, you know, to success or not, but we have to do the work now. It's very, very important. Mercury disposits both of these. We have Mercury at, let's see, 7 degrees of Libra. It says a woman feeding chickens and protecting them from hawks. The need to face the antagonism of the powers of darkness as one attempts to feed the mind of yet helpless and frightened apprentices. The key word here is guardianship. So for those of us who know, we need to make sure that those that are under our care, in a way, in whatever way that means, are protected through this period, and are informed through this period, and so that the potential isn't taken away or crushed, right? So there's a sense of guardianship with this. So very, very interesting. And here we see, here's Venus up here. This is for the US, this chart. Venus in the 8th house, our shared resources, right? Mars in the 6th house, the house of world service, the house of health, the house of the military. So this is, and of course, you know, here in America, we're always, you know, billions and billions and billions to these war efforts. Not that we shouldn't be doing that. Like we kind of have to, because that's what we decided what we were going to do. So if we decided we're going to do that, we have to be responsible around that. And we don't want to like waste things, right? We don't want to necessarily be wastrels here. So somebody like we did in Afghanistan and Iraq, when, you know, pretty much, you know, Halliburton got rich and everybody else got poor, and a lot of people died unnecessarily. Not to say that there wasn't a problem that needed to be solved, but perhaps it was like we went in, like we needed laser surgery, and we went in with a machete. So things needed to be cut out, but maybe not with a machete, right? So that's the kind of energy I'm talking about here. And there's Mercury up there in the 9th house. This is renegotiation, right? And the 9th house is foreign friends. It's also a house of justice. So there's a lot of like laws and things like that. You can apply this to yourself. You can apply it to the United States or whatever. But that's kind of the energy of the week. So I think it's going to be a really helpful, useful week if you put the work in. And remember, Mercury's retrograde, so you might have to do the work a couple of times. Don't get frustrated by that. Look at it from the perspective of you're just perfecting something. So the last thing we're going to look at is this. What are we looking at here? I actually don't know. I can't see what this is. This might actually be next week. Initial conjunct. Oh yes. Okay. So this is next week. So I'm going to get out of here now. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something here for you guys. Oh, that's weird. Okay, let me go back. Let me see what this is. I did this a while back, so I can't see. Opposition, Sun Neptune. Is that happening this week? Did I forget to put that in? Okay. All right. So Sun Neptune, I think this is happening on the 17th. Forgive me because I didn't write it down here. And I did this like last week, so can't remember. Oh, right. Sun Neptune opposition. How could I forget? So the Sun and Neptune, right? Neptune, obfuscation, the Sun, clarity. The initial conjunction occurred on the 13th of uh, of March, which was a 22-4 vibration. That's the Fool card in the tarot. It's also a master spiritual builder. When the Sun and Neptune come together, there's a spiritualization. It's like the divinity is seeding something within the soul, within the core of our solar system, the heart, right? The heartbeat of the life giver. And so at that time, it occurred at 23 degrees of Pisces because Neptune's been in Pisces since what, 2011, and will be there until 2026. So we still have some time with Pisces in Neptune and Pisces, which rules Pisces. So it's very, very powerful. And of course, it's causing a lot of the dissolution of the things that we've been used to as what is that, set in stone, right? All that stuff coming down, that's part of the Pisces energy. And having us realize that we're all in this together, and what you do in your neighborhood affects, it's kind of like the butterfly effect in a way, but like earthly, right, on the earth. So we had 23 of Pisces on the 13th. A materializing medium gives a seance, the ability to give one's own vital energy to substantiate one's conscious ideals or conscious desires. How much are you willing to devote to your view of reality, perhaps? The display of psychic powers that the symbol depicts can be interpreted positively or negatively. Of course, always, we live in a dual existence, according to the motives that induced the medium to give the seance. So is this medium giving the seance because they're truly gifted? Or are they giving the seance because they need an extra buck in their pocket? What is their intention? Intention is everything. When you deal with Neptune, because Neptune is connected to Kether and the tree of life, the beginning and the end are the same. Kether, the I am, okay, the crown. Intention is everything. So while a lot of, there's that expression that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? But when I talk about it, this is like a personal intention for yourself, not your intention for somebody else. A lot of that hell stuff has to do with you trying to control other people, which of course you don't have any control over. You only have control over yourself. So this is about sort of aligning with the purest intention that you can. So anyway, it says it is a most constructive aspect. It suggests the key word substantiation. The shadowy aspect of the process is deception. So this is also an opportunity to see who was telling the truth and who wasn't. So you can take that in whatever way you want, and however that's going to manifest in your life or in the collective. So the opposition we have brings awareness. The sun at 25 degrees of Virgo, a flag at half mast in front of a public building, the social acknowledgement of a job well done, and the destiny fulfilled. Keyword, public recognition, is in opposition to Neptune, which has actually moved a couple of degrees at 25 degrees of Pisces. And it says the religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influences of perverted practices and materialized ideals. The power of the soul to intervene in the personal life and to induce necessary catharsis. So what is your intention? The need to be true to yourself, the need to be true to the truth of a situation. And if you're on the right side of things, or if you're on the pure intentional side of things, then you will be seen for that. And for those who were not on the right side of things, they will be exposed as well. And then it's up to the organization, right? In this case, in this symbol, it talks about a religious organization, but any organization, to purify that out of the system, right? And it's very interesting because purification is very much an energy of Pisces and Virgo. Pisces and Virgo, where we started with the full moon at the beginning of this week, is the axis of health and healing. In Virgo, we talk about physical healing. In Pisces, we talk about spiritual healing. We need a balance of those things. We're not just physical beings and we're not just spiritual beings, right? So we need to have a balance with that. Okay, I think that's it for this week, right? Oh no, I just went backwards. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, let's try again. All right, so this is next week, and I'll talk about that next week. So I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, let me stop the share so you can see my big head. Hi, nice picture, right? This is a new dress I bought. I went on vacation, bought myself a dress, and it matches, which I think is really funny because I don't think I saw that before I bought this. But anyway, it's been real, guys. I hope you enjoyed like all the beach pictures and that moon rising with the fishermen and the waves. I mean, I couldn't have scripted it. I mean, I couldn't have afforded to script that. But it's interesting how miracles happen exactly when miracles need to happen. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I'll see you next week. In the news, I want to do an in the news segment. Everybody's asking about the new king. But I'm going to have to do a little research on that because Charles is, they don't have last names, I don't think. They only go by first names. So I have to like figure all the name stuff out. But I think I will do something on Charles, if not today, certainly this week. Okay, so if you're patient with me. And I'm starting all my classes now. We have beginners astrology starting on Monday. That's tomorrow. We have my Kabbalah class starting on, is it Thursday? No, or is that? I think Kabbalah is Wednesday, intermediate astrology on Thursday, and intermediate astrology on Saturday. For those of you who have, are in the class, I just want to let you know we're going to do it. Things had to get moved a little bit because I had to come down here for a funeral. So, but I love you guys and have a wonderful week. Take care. Namaste.